Central Pacific Hurricane Center will be issued at 11 o'clock Eastern, 5 o'clock Hawaii time.
All right. Thank you, Steve. Next up, we have from the United States Coast Guard, Admiral Austin, that we would like to bring up. And as I said yesterday, the Coast Guard plays a tremendous role in bolstering search and rescue capabilities. Also, they play a tremendous role in helping us to maintain access to waterway ports and a whole host of other things. So thank you, Admiral.
Thank you, Administrator. Good morning, everyone. The Coast Guard's primary concern is still the safety of the people on Hawaii and Coast Guard members and their families. Any assets that were going to be flown into Hawaii prior to the storm have made it there. They are staged and ready to go as soon as it is safe to respond. We are also waiting for the storm to pass so that we can have the ports reconstituted. We can continue to do post-storm damage assessments, working with FEMA or other local partners as well as industry to help prioritize which vessels come into the port as soon as possible so that we can get resources flowing back in there. That's all I have.
Thank you, Admiral. Next up from the Army Corps of Engineers, we have Ray Alexander with us today. As I said yesterday, the Army Corps of Engineers plays a tremendous role as well through the unified effort. Not only will they help with the emergency power mission, helping HECO, the private power industry that runs power on the island with emergency power, but they also help us to understand risk analysis when it comes to waterways, canals, dams, and bridges. So thank you, Ray.
Thank you, sir. Good morning. Under both FEMA and Army Corps authorities, the Corps is fully engaged, prepared to respond as needed. Our Pacific Ocean Division leadership, they're headquartered on Oahu. They are forward. Our subject matter experts for temporary power, debris removal, infrastructure assessment, they are all forward, and they are working with state and FEMA responders to coordinate and anticipate needs and assist in the planning efforts. Under FEMA mission assignment, we've already deployed temporary emergency power, debris, and infrastructure assessment subject matter experts and planning and response teams. They're on Oahu, they're on Kauai. We also have deployed a debris removal team forward and subject matter experts. And then finally, we're integrated fully with Coast Guard and NOAA to ensure that federal channels are quickly surveyed and opened. Yesterday, we were asked a question about the Alawai Canal in Waikiki. This is a state-controlled waterway. It is not an active flood risk management project. We did receive recently $345 million with emergency supplemental last summer to initiate a flood risk management project. Design will actually begin this fall, construction beginning in 2020, and the project is expected to be complete in 2023. It's a combination of multiple detention and water debris retention basins, as well as a flood wall, pumping station, flood warning system, but that is not in place. The canal has flooded in the past, and I believe it's safe to say, based upon the forecasted rainfall, it will likely flood again, but the impacts of which we are not prepared to say at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Ray.
Yes, sir.
All right, and then also next up, as I said yesterday, one of the crucial partners that we have is the American Red Cross, who helps us with mass care and sheltering and rendering safety and security to the citizens that are impacted. Brad Kaiserman.
Thank you, sir. Good morning.
Yep.
Good morning, everyone. As Hurricane Lane has lumbered towards the Hawaiian Islands, last night there were over 1,500 residents of Hawaii across the islands who sought shelter in temporary evacuation centers established by the counties. Over 1,000 of those folks were in Oahu, in multiple shelters in Honolulu County. Expect to see additional shelters that may open today, centers that may open today, and I definitely expect to see an increase in population as the storm continues to approach. There are over 500 Red Cross volunteers across the islands working today. Nearly 250 of them are event-based volunteers. That's people who raised their hand and said, I haven't been affiliated with a volunteer organization before, but I'd like to help now. And so they have all been processed in. We continue to have a need for volunteers on the island, and people can do that by going to 1-800-RED-CROSS or by going went online to redcross.org. But for now, we have adequate forces on the island, and we're working with our partners, the Salvation Army, who continue to do disaster feeding across the island. We'll keep you posted.
All right.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. And I think it's worthwhile mentioning here again, disaster response is a whole community obligation, not just FEMA's obligation, but it also goes down to the citizen being appropriately prepared. So if you're looking to get involved, and here again, it's an incredibly, it's a critical component of the whole community, neighbor helping neighbor. If you're looking to get involved, we would ask you to also visit nvoad.org, nvoad.org. So with that, we'll stop and take any questions you may have. Yes, ma'am.
Real quick question. We're looking at what's going on at the agriculture system in the state. We're wondering if anything has been said about how farmers are preparing, what crops might be affected, anything along those lines?
Jeff, I don't have anything on agriculture at this point.
Yeah.
This is Jeff Byard, Office of Response and Recovery Director for FEMA.
You know, our current priorities, as the administrator laid out, are life-saving, life-sustaining, the food, water, sheltering, and safety and security. You know, obviously, we want all to be prepared, both in the business sector and in the agricultural sector. However, you know, that's our primary focus. We do have USDA, you know, with us, one of our emergency support function partners. So we will check with the appropriate agency on that. But however, we want to focus our efforts on saving lives and then making sure that we have adequate food, water, and sheltering. And then at the as we go post-storm, we'll start doing the assessments in that sense.
Thank you, Jeff.
Yes.
Next question? Yes, ma'am.
The power outage, I think you had mentioned that temporary power was put in place already. Can you just talk a little bit about where, what parts of the islands and how much?
No, what we have in place are temporary power subject matter experts and planning response teams. So they are forward. They're working with state, local officials in identifying the requirements so that as we get mission assignment to actually begin installation of generators, we're prepared to do that. Okay.
In line with that question, I think it's very important to point out here again, HECO, which is Hawaii's private power company that is largely in charge of restoring power, not FEMA, not the Army Corps of Engineers. Our mission is designed to backfill their capability. So, for example, we mobilize a lot of generator capability that we have ready to go to support critical infrastructure until the power is turned back on. And then when it comes to HECO, typically the well-organized power companies have robust mutual aid agreements in place. And the role that the federal government plays in that is helping them to facilitate those mutual aid agreements, such as getting equipment and teams from CONUS United States into the ports, into the waterways, so that they can deploy out. But we have verified with HECO that they do have very strong reserves when it comes to equipment and supplies to be able to quickly fix the energy grid. But here again, let's set expectations. They're called disasters because stuff is broken after the fact, and citizens need to realize that we're looking at major hurricane impacts and things are going to break, and we need to set the expectations that the power could go off for quite some time, and the infrastructure is going to be heavily impacted. Next question. Okay, thank you, folks.